What does it mean when someone says, my life is in a downward spiral? Well, we're going to find out today. This is Tom Kieran with the Be Something Wonderful studio of Higher Consciousness in San Diego, California, where we help you become a better version of yourself and level up. Welcome back, guys. I want to talk about this whole thing about getting into this downward spiral. And when we talk about downward spiral, when people talk about this, that my life's in a downward spiral, that I'm in a downward spiral, we are talking about emotion. And we've talked about feelings, beliefs, feelings, thoughts, and emotions. Now we're going to talk about it in terms of this emotional guidance scale. A lot of spiritual teachers talk about this. Abraham Hicks, psychotherapists talk about it, psychologists talk about it. And I want to talk about it today in terms of the idea of getting caught up in negative emotion and feeling like we're in a downward spiral. How do we reverse that? How do we get life going in an upward spiral? That's what we're going to talk about today. So guys, here's the idea of the emotional guidance scale. A lot of information here, but let me break it down for you. We're going to unpack this today. And then we're going to talk about how do we go from here to here. Yeah? And let's just talk about a starting point on the emotional scale. If you want to think about the sort of a medium between an upward spiral and a downward spiral, I would call this indifference. Some call it boredom. Some call it neutrality, right? You're in a neutral state, but we're never really in a neutral state, are we? We're either somewhere on the upward spiral or somewhere in the downward spiral. But sometimes we can get into this sort of mode where we're just in an indifference mode. Not a neutral mode necessarily, but we're just indifferent. We don't feel strongly either way. We're probably hovering around the beginnings of either one of these scales. So let's first talk about the downward spiral. The downward spiral, we're talking about negative emotions. We're talking about those lower level emotions that I've mentioned many times. And it starts, you go from indifference and then you start spiraling downwards. It's really, guys, the way I look at it, it starts with negative expectations, right? You go from indifference to some sort of negativity. And then, as emotions do, one emotion follows another, one thought follows another, and then you get into this downward spiral, right? Why? Because as soon as you get into negative expectations, the events and circumstances of your life start showing you that the universe, that God inside you, that's what you attract, right? Remember, God's neutral. God gives you free choice. So if you're going to go in a negative spiral, you are going to attract what you choose. And you are choosing negativity. You're going to have events that bring you negativity. This is how it works. And so what happens? You get lower on the spiral. You go from pessimism to frustration, disappointment, irritation, doubt, blame. We keep getting lower and spiraling down lower. Worry, jealousy, anger, a big one, right? Again, at each time you spiral downward, you attract more and more events. That's how the universe works, right? You attract how you feel. We talked about this yesterday, that your state of being is the attractor. How you feel, how you think, feel, and what you think, feel, and believe, right? And then we start placing blame, right? We start getting angry at ourselves and others. Then you get these real lower emotions, hate, guilt, right? And then you bottom out, right? Fear, depression, and we have this expression, you hit rock bottom. What is rock bottom? You're totally powerless, right? At rock bottom, you are totally powerless. There's nowhere to go but up after this, right? There's nowhere to go but up after this. So you hit rock bottom, right? And, many psychotherapists, many psychologists, people in the field, they always want to get to the bottom of things, right? They always want to uncover what's the childhood drama, what's the cause behind this. And all of us want to dig and find out, why are we depressed? Why are we doubting? Why are we angry? Right? Guys, Abraham Hicks said this very eloquently. There is no bottom. You just keep getting deeper and deeper in these emotions. There's no bottom. You can keep digging, right? Even the rock bottom to get there. There is no bottom. You can't you can't get there from digging it up and trying to. There might be some value in understanding it a little bit, but I wouldn't stay there, right? I wouldn't stay there, and you don't really have to figure that out, right? You don't have to figure that out. How many people do you know that they've been working their whole life on trying to find out what was the drama, what was the seed of their negativity? Guys, you don't have to. What you got to do is stop the spiral, right? You got to get out of here and then start going in an upward spiral, right? You got to get back to indifference and then set positive expectations. Positive expectations turned into circumstances that drive other things, that drive other emotions in your life, like contentment. The circumstances of your life start shifting around once you get into that positive expectations. Optimism, fun, enthusiasm, hopefulness, right? Get you in that right direction, and it keeps spiraling up. Fun, happiness, passion, until finally you're at these love, joy, freedom, gratitude. Freedom's at the top. You're totally free when you're there. When you spiral upwards, and you catch it's momentum, right? You can catch the momentum on a downward spiral, or you can catch this momentum on an upward spiral. That's where you want to be. It starts by setting positive expectations, right? Again, beliefs are just thoughts that you think over and over again. So the way to change your belief is get a new thought. Instead of trying to change your beliefs, change your old thoughts, get a new thought of positive expectations. Let those drive your life, right? And then you get into this idea of gratitude. We talked about the power of gratitude. Now you're empowered. You're not powerless anymore. You're empowered. You're not low vibration. You're high vibration, right? You're not unconscious anymore. You're conscious. This is where you want to be. The real top, a lot of spiritual teachers talk about the scale of consciousness, right? And there's actually numbers from 0 to 1,000 that they attach to your level of consciousness. We won't get into that too much. But once you get up in like the 500s or so, midway through 600, 700, you're at a pretty high level of awareness and consciousness. What we want to do is work on this. This is where we can start changing our life. This builds on what we talked about yesterday, the day before, and the day before. We're always talking about energy, vibration, thoughts, things, feelings, how you attract the good stuff in your life, right? You don't have to keep digging stuff up from your past, right? Let the dead bury the dead. Remember, I think that's a quote from the Bible, right? Let it be, right? Let it be. Do not keep digging it up, right? We keep trying to dig up that hatchet that we buried. We talked about that, right? Bury the hatchet, but don't keep digging it up. Don't remember where it was buried, and then don't go back to dig it up. Okay? I'm here to tell you, you don't have to. You can analyze and try to get to the bottom of things your whole life, and there is no bottom. Yeah? Like I said, there could be some value in that. But how do we get there? And it's good to work with. I'm not saying if you feel comfortable, work with other coaches and psychologists and psychotherapists. That training is awesome and it's good. But sometimes it puts us in a situation where we're looking for something to solve all this. We have to understand everything and get to the bottom of everything. Guys, you don't. And here's what we have. What do we have to do? Well, to get back up on that, go up the emotional scale, you got to forgive. It starts with this. We talked about this in the Course in Miracles, which a Course in Miracles is really based on this idea of forgiveness. Not forgiveness in that you're letting somebody off the hook or you're letting yourself off the hook and still remembering what you did. That's not what we're talking about. Forgiveness is giving up this idea of guilt, this idea of judgment, condemnation, and blame that you did something wrong to your higher power, to that divinity. It's giving up to that, right? Let God take it. Let that divinity take it. And because God does not even recognize that it happened. That's the idea, that we're spiritual beings, that we're all connected, that we're all one, that there is nothing to forgive, right? And this is the idea of forgiveness, letting it completely go, right? The way to get rid of guilt is stop defending yourself. Stop justifying yourself. Stop thinking that you did something wrong. You're not guilty. I don't care what you did in your life, right? We stop judging. And when you stop judging, you stop condemning and you stop blaming, and then you quickly start moving up the emotional scale. These are the things you got to do. Guys, and remember, this is the stuff that we already talked about. So what do? You forgive. The idea that you give it up to divinity, that the ego can't, when you're in the ego state, when you're not in that divine aligned state, you're unforgiving, right? Or you forgive with conditions. I'll forgive you, but I won't forget. That's not forgiveness, right? That's remembering with a hatchet's buried. I'll forgive you, but you got to do this. We put conditions on it. No, it's total 100% forgiveness, giving up that to divinity, and knowing that in your divine form, it's impossible to sin. It's impossible it's that ego side that is struggling with all that stuff, all that junk, right? You don't have to sort through all this. I'm here to tell you, you don't. What you got to do is start moving up on the emotional scale. And how do you do that? You start by letting it completely go. And then the secret, guys, start, what do you want? Do you want joy? Do you want higher level emotions? Do you want on the emotional scale? Let me just flip back to this. We want contentment, positive expectations, hopefulness, passion. Then be that. Start giving it away. When you give things away, that's power. Why? The universe thinks when you give it away, you have it to give away. So it comes back to you. Giving quickly puts you into those higher level emotions. And then that combined with gratitude, as we talked to yesterday, leads to this, guys. It's all love. It's about making a choice, right? It's about making a choice. We could use the excuse, the way I was brought up, I had a tough upbringing. I know this. I know. I come from dysfunction like a lot of us do. I know what it's like. And we can blame, and we can be stuck there and blame it on our upbringing, blame it on our schooling, blame it on others, blame everywhere except go inside and say there's nothing to blame. There are no victims and there are no villains. There's just you and God in you. That's amazing. No victims, no villains, just God and God within you, that divinity. You can do this. This isn't a rah-rah, think positive thoughts, cheerleading session, guys, although it sounds like that many times. It's about doing the real, this stuff works, right? This is who you are. This is who you are. Affirmations, why do a lot of times affirmations don't work? Is because, one, we don't believe it. Two, the way we're doing it, we're not, affirmations only work when you're in that feeling state. You've got to feel it to believe. Remember, feeling it. Remember, believing is seeing, feeling is believing. So when you feel it, then you get in the state. But that's how we go up that's how we start reversing. And once you forgive, you don't have the guilt, you don't have the judging, you don't have the condemnation of the blame. It can't fit there, right? Let's go back to this emotional. Remember, it's a choice. Guys, we're always choosing. We choose the reality we want to create. We choose. I'm not saying it's necessarily that we choose to be doubtful or blameful, but we get into this once we start setting negative expectations, once we forget about the power of forgiving and giving away love attracts love. Forgiving, when you forgive others, you are forgiven. Right? It comes back to you. This is the beautiful part. How do you forgive yourself? Forgive others. Yeah. How do you get love? Give love to others. It's really amazing. It really works, guys. And this is powerful. This is the high vibration stuff. You can get there. Remember, from indifference, if you start setting negative expectations, that's why it seems to be a negative spiral. But let me tell you here, you're here to spiral upwards, infinitely and forevermore. It's nonstop expansion. It's nonstop growth in love. Even when you have what you might call a setback, it's not, but I know we view it that way. You can always make that, you always have a new moment, a new holy instant, as the Course in Miracles says, to make another choice, to choose love. Marianne Williamson, the Democratic political candidate, talked about this right in her books, but it was great. She did a book that was based on the Course in Miracles. Choose love. When you choose love, that gets you out of this cycle and then up on this upward cycle in these higher level emotions. So that's why it's a spiral, because one good thought leads to another good thought. One negative thought leads to another negative thought. That's where you got to get off the spiral. How do we get off it? We just talked about this a minute ago. Start with forgiveness. Start with letting go, letting it all go. Right? We're going to talk more about this. I think I talked about another book called Transurfing. Vadim Zeland wrote this book. I want to talk more about it. He has some amazing revelations in there in terms of become the observer. Yes, as opposed to being in, we get ourselves in, when we're in the situation, it's hard to say, but if you step back, step off the stage, right? We're all in a play. Life's a play. This is how he talks about it. And Neville Goddard talks about it like that too, another spiritual mystic. He was from the 50s and 60s. But if you step back and step off the stage as an observer, or you can even observe while you're participating in the play, in life, right? We'll talk about that more. But then you start observing instead of reacting. Yes, because it's the reacting to every situation that gets us going in that downward direction, right? We'll talk more about this, but it's that idea of letting go, forgiving, then giving and gratitude and love. That's how you get up on the upward spiral. Even if you just started with gratitude and forgiveness, right? But giving, guys, and it doesn't have to be things. It doesn't have to be money. It could be. It could be experiences, but it could just be saying thank you to somebody, giving them thanks, giving thanks, as we talked about yesterday. Yeah, it could just be calling someone and saying, hey, I was thinking about you. How are you? A kind word, right? We talked about this before, right? It could be anything. It could just be a smile. How's your day, right? You're doing a great, you walk in, we go out and we want to run errands and we forget to just pause a second. Say thank you to that person that's working, in the middle of a pandemic. Yeah? It's powerful, right? And you have no idea the energy you're setting up and it comes right back, right? Good attracts good. Love attracts love, right? Meanness attracts meanness. Anger attracts more anger. So guys, if you want to be there, that's what you're going to get. And when I say more, that's the spiral, right? And then the upward spiral is optimism attracts more optimism. It attracts fun. Don't forget about fun, right? Happiness, that's where you want to be. So this is the emotional skill in a spiral format. Depending on the spiritual teacher, you'll see it different ways. But I like this presentation because if you start here in indifference, that's the middle. And that's what it means when we get in a downward spiral, right? But we want to talk about, at Be Something Wonderful, how do you get into that upward spiral? You get there by forgiveness. Not conditional forgiveness, not forgiveness to get something, not forgiveness to remember what they did or you did, right? It's forgiving yourself. Remember, when you forgive yourself, you are forgiven. When you give love, you get love. That's how it works, guys. We'll talk more about this. I wanted to lay the groundwork for the emotional skill because I'm going to come back to this. And it's really the base of anything. We'll probably talk about that skill of consciousness at one point as well. All right, guys, until later today, this is Tom Kieran with the Be Something Wonderful studio of Higher Consciousness in San Diego, California. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, which is a little caricature is going to come up in a moment of me with a headset. Press that or subscribe anytime during the videos with the Be Something Wonderful to the right side. You'll see other videos on the Be Something Wonderful YouTube channel. Don't forget to hit the like button and the notification button so you don't miss a video. This is Tom Kieran with Be Something Wonderful. Until next time.